So let's talk about the man at the absolute epicenter of the AI revolution. But this isn't just going to be some dry biography. No, this is a high-stakes thriller about a founder who, time and again, bet his entire company on a future that only he could see. He literally built the engine of our modern world. Let's dive in.
Now, a quote like that, it sounds like something you'd see on a motivational poster, right? But for NVIDIA's co-founder and CEO, Jensen Huang, this wasn't just some corporate slogan. It was the brutal, terrifying reality of their early days. Perfection wasn't a goal. It was the only way to survive.
Because that's all they had left. Just 6 months of cash in the bank. The company was on the razor's edge of complete collapse, staring down a single all-or-nothing bet. So how on earth does a young immigrant from Taiwan end up in a position to either change the world or lose absolutely everything? To really get who this guy is, you gotta go back, way back. His journey to Silicon Valley was, let's just say, anything but ordinary. It all started with a pretty jarring, hard-knocks introduction to America. Okay, so he starts out in Taiwan, but his first real taste of America was a shock. He was mistakenly sent to a reform school in rural Kentucky. I mean, can you imagine? After that, he thankfully rejoined his family in Oregon, trading that hardship for intense focus, even becoming a nationally ranked table tennis player. He met his future wife, Lori, as his lab partner at Oregon State, and then went on to get a master's from Stanford, all while working a full-time job. The work ethic was clearly there from the start.
And this right here, in his own words, tells you everything. You can see his whole mindset forming. It wasn't just about being tough to get by. It was about watching, learning, working harder than anyone else, and building this deep, deep resilience that would define everything he did next.
Which brings us right back to that crisis. See, back in 1993, on his 30th birthday, Huang co-founded NVIDIA to chase this huge dream of accelerated computing. But just a few years later, that dream had completely curdled into a nightmare. They were running out of time, running out of money, and pretty much running out of hope.
They had made a series of absolutely catastrophic miscalculations. Their core technology was just incompatible with where the entire industry was going. Microsoft's new DirectX standard basically made their chips obsolete overnight. And even though they were one of the first, the market was suddenly flooded with 30 other competitors. They weren't just on the wrong track, they had driven straight off a cliff.
They had to hit the reset button on the entire company. Everything, and I mean everything, was riding on their next chip, the Riva 128. This wasn't just another product launch. No, this was a desperate, Hail Mary pass with the fate of the whole company hanging in the balance.
So with no time and no money, they cooked up this plan that was, well, it was completely nuts. Instead of building expensive physical prototypes, they decided to simulate the entire chip in software. Then, they would write and test all the code on this virtual chip, declare it perfect, sight unseen, and then bet the very last of their money, sending it straight to the factory for mass production. It was a one-shot deal. It had to be flawless.
And it worked. The chip actually worked. The Riva 128 was a massive success. And just like that, NVIDIA was pulled back from the brink. But this near-death experience, it didn't make Jensen Huang cautious. Oh no, it taught him a very different lesson. That when you bet the company, you can win big. And his next bet, it was going to be even bigger.
So what do you do with this new lease on life? Play it safe, right? Consolidate your wins. Not Jensen Huang. He immediately started pouring money and engineers into a revolutionary new technology, one that had no market, no customers, and no obvious purpose. He was building a powerful engine for a car that hadn't even been invented yet.
That engine was called CUDA. And simply put, it was a software platform that could unlock the thousands of little processing cores inside a graphics card, not just for video games, but for any big computing problem. It was a huge bet that a GPU could be more than just a toy for gamers. It could be a pocket supercomputer.
And the difference here was just profound. Think of it like this. A regular CPU is like a single genius, solving really hard problems one by one. A GPU with CUDA, on the other hand, is like an entire army of workers, tackling thousands of tasks all at the same time, in parallel. Huang had built a fundamentally new kind of computer. The only question was, who would ever use it?
And this wasn't an accident. Huang actually has a name for this strategy. He calls it chasing $0 billion markets. He deliberately tries to position NVIDIA a full decade ahead of where a market is going to be. But for years, CUDA was just this black hole for money and resources, a brilliant solution desperately looking for a problem to solve.
And then, finally, the world caught up.
In 2012, a small group of AI researchers working on a project called AlexNet had a light bulb moment. They realized that NVIDIA's CUDA platform was the perfect tool for training their massive neural networks. This was it. This was the breakthrough. The problem had finally found its solution.
And this just kicked off an incredible flywheel effect. Think about it. The massive gaming market built the hardware foundation. CUDA unlocked that hardware for scientists and researchers. That made NVIDIA the default engine for the entire AI boom. From there, they expanded from just chips to full data center systems, effectively becoming the picks and shovels supplier for the great AI gold rush. Every single bet just compounded the last one.
The transformation of the company was just staggering. You can see it right here on this chart. NVIDIA's whole identity changed. They went from being a company built for gamers to being dominated by their data center and AI business, which soon accounted for over 80% of their revenue. They weren't just a gaming company anymore. They were building the world's AI factories.
But look, a 3-decade journey of relentless innovation and betting the farm over and over again, that comes at a price. There's a huge human cost to building a company this way. It is not for the faint of heart.
Huang's management style is just as unique as his business strategy. Get this, he has over 40 direct reports. He flattened the entire corporate hierarchy to make information flow faster. He has this belief that the mission is the boss, not some person in a corner office. It empowers small teams to solve problems directly, without getting bogged down by management layers.
And all of this leads to this surprisingly raw, vulnerable admission from him. He says the true superpower of an entrepreneur isn't some grand vision or being a genius. It's not knowing how unbelievably hard it's going to be. He believes the pain, the suffering, the sheer number of things that go wrong is so immense that nobody in their right mind would ever start a company if they knew the full cost up front.
But look at what was born from all that pain and suffering. A trillion-dollar company with an absolutely dominant market position, still led by its founder after more than 30 years, and now powering what almost everyone is calling the next industrial revolution. Jensen Huang has always bet on a future he could see before anyone else. His final bet, he says, is that AI will be a net positive for all of us, that it will create more jobs than it displaces. So, after seeing the incredible high-stakes journey that brought us here, the final question really isn't about him anymore. It's about us. Now that he's helped build this new world, what are we going to do with it?